So, before we go to a coffee break, I would really like to invite Ryan on stage, and he will then introduce also the other speakers on stage. Foreign, who will moderate a very interesting panel on transformative adaptation in practice, how regions are implementing the EU mission. And Ryan is the Director of Projects for ERIN, the European Regions Research and Innovation Network. And he currently coordinates ERIN's work on several mission-related projects. Again, you see there's a lot of overlaps with the other activities that are happening. The stage is yours.
Thank you very much. As we're going to be standing or sitting between you and your coffee break, I would actually say to my panelists, if you can already come up and join me, and then we can try to ensure that we don't overrun too much. Thank you, Louisa. As was said, my name is Ryan Titley. I'm the Director of Projects at ERIN. Please join me. Fernando. Yes, great. I'm just going to do a quick couple of questions as we kick off this panel session. Can I get a show of hands? Who found that quite complicated but really informative? Can we get a show of hands? Yeah, a few, good. Maybe who's still interested in applying for the funding? Okay, a few less, but hopefully we can use this session. Our session now is about transformative adaptation in practice. So how does this really work in European regions? And hopefully we can use that as a way of actually encouraging. And by the end, maybe I'll ask again and try and get a few more hands up, because it is a complicated process. We know that European funding is complicated, and we try to make it as simple as possible. And I think my colleagues did an excellent job at introducing the cascade funding that is available and the support that we can offer you. But the real reality is that what we can do on the ground is the most important thing. So we have to break through some of these administrative barriers in order to actually make progress. As I said, I work for ERIN. ERIN has been a friend of the mission since the mission launched. We've been working on the adaptation mission for long before the mission actually started. And I'm very happy to be here with 3 regions, or 2 regions and national level, to actually talk a little bit about how adaptation works in practice. To avoid wasting your time and breaking more of the coffee break, I'm actually going to pass the microphone down the panel, and I'm going to give my colleagues a chance to introduce themselves, as they'll be able to do it far better than I can. But you have 1 minute to introduce yourselves and where you're working.
Okay, thank you very much for having me here. My name is Maria Päri, and I work for the Finnish Center for Economic Development, Transport and the Environment, and in its national climate unit. These centers are part of the local offices of the Finnish central government. So my job is that of chief specialist in adaptation.
Hello everyone, my name is Teresa Flekova, and I work at the regional office of South Moravian region, and I work here as a project manager of subsidy program that is focused on adaptation to climate change in our region.
Okay, thank you. Good morning. My name is Fernando Pulido. I am a professor at the University of Extremadura in southwestern Spain, very close to Portugal, and I am the coordinator of a long-term project for fighting wildfires, which are probably the most relevant problem we have in depopulated regions of Spain. Thank you.
Thanks very much. And we're going to kick off with some questions for our panel. But just to remind you, we want this to be an interactive session. So once we've had a little discussion, we will also open the floor up to the audience in the room and also to the Slido as well. So please prepare your questions, listen in. Maybe you can adapt your question from the previous session and we try to, maybe not, but we see what we can do. Okay, just to kick us off then, Mara, how has the national level coordination of the mission adaptation been set up in Finland? And how are the regions collaborating on climate change adaptation through national networks?
Yes, so we have 6 regions in Finland out of 18 that have joined the mission adaptation. And this idea to build a national network came from them. It was first discussed at the second forum for the mission in Sweden last summer. And the development and coordination of this network was given to this our climate unit, which was established last spring, because our job is to support the implementation of the Finnish National Adaptation Plan at the regional and local level. And the objectives of the mission adaptation and the Finnish National Adaptation Plan are very well aligned. And so we had a kick-off meeting in September, and we invited naturally all the signatories of the mission charter, and also these organizations that are partners in Horizon projects that are currently funded under the mission. And we heard a presentation from member of the mission board, and learned that also like national efforts are needed in order to reach the goals of the mission adaptation. And also we heard about the cities mission and how it's been implemented in Finland at the moment, and what we could learn from that work, and what kind of synergies we could have with the cities mission. And then of course we had discussions on the wishes and needs that the signatories and other organizations have for this network. And it has to be mentioned that our network will be open for all regions and local authorities and other organizations that are planning their adaptation activities. It's not limited to the mission signatories. And it will be a platform, a national platform to seek project partners, and it will be a knowledge hub for adaptation information and research results specific to Finland, and also like a newsroom for the members of the network.
That's fascinating, and I really like the idea that you said this. So it's bottom up. It came from a need from the regions, and they're able to adapt to that. And how have the regions been finding it from this first few months of the work that they've been doing together? Have you had any feedback from them?
Not yet. We just finished our sort of action plan for the network. And we'll have the next session in December on the new risk and vulnerabilities report in Finland. So.
Excellent. So I think that's a call to action as well. In a year's time or 2 years' time, we can get you back to hear how this network is going. Excellent. Maybe Fernando, on to you. So you mentioned wildfires as a big problem in Extremadura. How are you preparing for and adapting to the increased heat waves and wildfires?
That's okay. Well, wildfires are a huge problem in all over southern Europe and even Central Europe, and it will become a even more acute problem in the future, according to the climate predictions. And in the region of Extremadura, which is very close to Portugal, and we are facing very similar problems because of the combination of climate change and the population. You have to think that the population density in our regions are below 10 inhabitants per square kilometer. Probably here you have 500, maybe 1,000. So the problem with climate change is strongly interacting with the population, because the population results in land abandonment and forest encroaching. So we have a problem with the increase in spontaneous forest establishment and the increase in the fuel that is creating this problem with mega fires. So in Spain and also in Portugal and other southern countries, we know in all the meetings where I am participating, there is a general agreement that we need a paradigm shift and to move from the classical and reactive fire extinction approach to prevention approach with the engagement of local stakeholders. In this way, we need to create what somebody calls a fire smart landscape, with the engagement and of the stakeholders and changes and innovation in governance. We have a pilot experience in Extremadura that we have been working on in the last 7 years. It is called Mosaico. Mosaico or Mosaic is the name of the long-term project in northern Extremadura. And we have been trying to learn from this process of changing governance and innovation for a smart fire landscape. We learned that we have to rely in 4 main pillars for being successful. One is some changes in legislation. We have to adapt legislation. For example, we have a lot of problems in protected areas that where we cannot do anything, but a few years later they burn in a fire. So we need changes in legislation. We need also to, of course, to engage stakeholders. We need the support from innovation centers that must at the local level, not only on a conceptual or global scale. And of course, we need also to improve the payment for ecosystem services or the payments for prevention services that the farmers are performing in these landscapes. So according to these 4 pillars, we now have some measures of the success of our approach. We have worked with more than 300 local initiatives, and we now know that we are reducing fire risk. We are reducing the potential average fire size for the future. And we are convinced that fire prevention in this place is not only a need, but is probably the last opportunity that these areas have for just development in the future.
Thank you very much. I have a quick follow-up question, if that's okay on that. So if I'm not mistaken, you're a signatory to the mission charter for the adaptation, and you're also in the RESIST project, which is a Horizon project under the adaptation mission. How do you see all of these initiatives, including the Pathways to Resilience, coming together in Extremadura? Has there been a discussion around this?
Yes, for us, for Extremadura and for similar regions, this is, of course, a great opportunity, especially through the RESIST project. We are learning a lot. These processes are long-term processes. The project must have an adaptive component. You have to learn continuously. And of course, networking of these kind of centers and initiatives is critical for the success of the project and also for the extrapolation to similar regions. Okay.
Thank you very much. And I think we heard earlier this morning as well about the importance of peer learning, so regions coming together to learn from each other. And I'm going to move on to Teresa now. How does the South Moravian region motivate and support municipalities and other stakeholders in the region to implement adaptation measures?
So in the long term, the South Moravian region is trying to motivate mainly the municipalities, but also other stakeholders in the region to implement climate change adaptation measures primarily financially through the subsidy program that I administer. We also organize various seminars with experts where we try to inform about the importance of the topic and also show examples of good practice in our region. We also annually announce a competition called Prize for Landscape. It's for the projects in South Moravian region that have a positive impact on water retention in the landscape and adaptation to climate change. It's also to appreciate everyone who takes care of our landscape and also to inspire the municipalities, companies, and individuals. And its result also is important for us to see if our support is heading in the right direction. And we also have prepared the document Adaptation of South Moravian Region Territory to the Effects of Climate Change, which is a spatial analysis of suitable locations for the preparation and implementation of small water bodies, within which we selected over 600 suitable locations in our region.
Fantastic. I actually hear from all of you actually the importance of this ecosystem as well. So you're working with the local authorities, but there's other actors and stakeholders that are engaged in these processes. And I think that's really interesting when we think about the subgranting process that's open in Pathways to Resilience, to see that we can actually we need the local authorities to be involved in the application process, but we need to bring the ecosystem with them. So we need to make sure that we're making these connections at local level as well. Okay, I'm going to move to some questions for everybody, so please feel free to grab the mic at any moment. What do you see are the key challenges that face regions in its work to become more resilient? So how can these challenges be addressed, and on which levels? So we've had colleagues from the national level, but the regional level as well, and we've heard from colleagues from the EU level. How do these three levels come together and the multi-level governance work in reality?
I maybe start if it's okay with you. Okay. So we face some strategic challenges because we still have no climate action plan at the regional level right now, but we are working on it in cooperation with the INAC agency. It's an agency in our region. And we estimated, the estimated processing date is during next year. And in first quarter of 2025, we would like to submit an application for the Life SIB program. And we also have some economic challenges because, we have the subsidy program, but our financial resources are limited. So it's always nice to search some new ways to find additional funding. And we also face some social challenges because for us it's very important to activate the stakeholders and cooperate with them, and to activate the potential of our territory, and also spread the awareness about the importance of the topic. Would you like to say?
Thank you. If I look at the Finnish regions, they are at very different stages of integrating adaptation in their work. So it's a bit difficult to point out common key challenges. In some of the regions, adaptation has already been acknowledged in for instance, regional strategies that the regions have to write every 4 years, so it's there already. But in some regions, they are still gaining understanding of what are the impacts of climate change and where to start with adaptation planning. And also there are the risks and vulnerabilities vary a lot. If you look at different parts of the country, like for instance, we have Helsinki-Uusimaa region in the south, one of the Mission Charter signatories, which is home for over 30% of the population in Finland. There is lots of people, lots of infrastructure, economic activity, and so on, and then also the Regional Council of Lapland is a signatory, and there the nature is changing, ecosystems are changing very rapidly, and the vulnerabilities are very visible. So the different differences are to be seen. However, I believe that one of the key challenges everywhere is that adaptation work has to compete with other topics that the region have to deal with, like business development and demographic changes, and also like climate change mitigation targets and work. So it's like was it Elina who said that it's still voluntary in many places, and that's one of the key challenges. I discussed with an expert from Southwest Finland region, also a signatory region, and she said that there really should be a stronger steering towards mainstreaming adaptation at all levels of governance, and she even pointed out that there should be even binding and measurable targets set, and also support needed to achieve these targets.
Thank you very much. If I can ask you to pass the microphone down to Fernando, but I just wanted to comment on one of the points that you made there, which I found really encouraging, from Fernando, saying that Pathways to Resilience is open. We're open to collaborate, we're open to share information, and open to work together with other initiatives. And I think you can see that from Thomas's presentation as well, when you see the Net Zero Cities wheel and the Pathways to Resilience wheel working together. And we need to make sure from a mission perspective, that these two missions are operating collectively and we're not trying to compete with each other, because adaptation and mitigation are two friends in a way. We need to make sure that the activities are shared and we are sharing information and collective support on that as well. So it's really encouraging to hear that this is happening at the regional level as well. Fernando, please.
Well, I would like to stress that for me, we have two main challenges in relation with these missions. The first challenge is to convince the people that climate change and adaptation for climate change, etc., is not a cost, it's an opportunity. Maybe, as I said before, the last opportunity for the less favored regions in peripheral Europe, which are the more threatened by climate change, either by wildfires or flooding, etc. And also the other change is to we have the opportunity to integrate many different policies that are now acting in isolation. In fact, I think that many of the problems we experience in these regions are the result of the poor coordination of different policies. So we need a more integrative policies for addressing these problems.
Thank you very much. Maybe we said this was about practical examples, and I think you've given quite a few already, but could we maybe focus on, do you have any good examples or lessons learned to share with stakeholders involved in local and regional climate adaptation work?
Well, I start again. I will bore you with some numbers. I would like to say more about the subsidy program, which has been operating at the regional office since 2017. And during its existence, it has supported over 630 projects from almost 400 municipalities in the region. And the South Moravian region participated in the financing in the amount of almost 60 million Czech crowns, and the total value of these projects exceeds 400 million Czech crowns, which is approximately 16 million euros.
Okay. So if I think about lessons learned or good examples of stakeholder involvement, I reckon that projects targeted to develop nature-based solutions are a good example, because they require participation of a wide selection of expertise. There has to be hopefully adaptation experts to tell what's going to happen in the future, and also engineers to figure out what kind of solutions we need. We need ecologists, we need landscape architectures, and urban planners, community facilitators maybe, and so on. So they all have to take each other's expertise into account in planning these solutions, and they have to be committed to work on solutions which will ideally enhance resilience at the local level in the future. So that was maybe my example.
Well, in our Spanish case, I think that our Mosaico project is very interesting because through the engagement of many stakeholders at the local level, we are pushing the regional and even national agencies to change some policies. So it is this pressure, the experience of the local people in the real world, what is provoking these changes in policy related with land uses and fire.
Thank you very much. I have one question left, but I think it's a difficult one, so I'm going to save it till last. Gives you a little bit of time to get ready for it. But I take this moment to open up to the floor. Do we have any questions from the audience for our colleagues? I'm going to try to grab the iPad, and I'm hoping that somebody's hand will pop up as I do that. No questions in the room. Well, I have a few on Slido, so that's not a problem. Although there are some questions that are for the previous session, so I try to avoid that. One moment. No, actually, all the questions are for the previous session, so we don't have any particularly there. We have a question from the front, please.
It's to help the dynamics. No, I'm interested because I think all the regions represented here they have some elements of cross-border as well. In the case of Extremadura, it's very clear. South Moravia and Finland as well share borders. So, do you have a good example of cross-border cooperation in your resilience projects?
Who wants to jump in on this one?
Yes, very briefly. Our project in Extremadura is just right now being replicated in the other side in Portugal. I don't like to say the other side, but we have some small regions where the project is being replicated, especially in Portugal, and we are also trying to cooperate with people in your country, Italy.
Yeah, I'm not aware of any project right now that is cross-border, but maybe that's another opportunity, the next step for us. So we will see what the future has in hands for us.
Yes, I've done some crossover cooperation in my previous work, but our new climate unit is so new that we haven't established any connections yet, but hope to do that in the future.
Great. Any more questions from the audience? Maybe I can ask a question to you. The examples you've heard this morning, are they ringing true? Are these situations similar in the regions that you're coming from, the organizations that you're working for? Can I get a show of hands? Who feels that they have a lot of similarities between what's been said this morning? Yeah, a little bit. Okay. Yeah, good. And a colleague from the Committee of the Regions also very good. Okay, moving to my last question, if we don't have any more in the audience. Perfect. Yeah, I know.
Thanks a lot. Well, you're asking for questions, so I have this one a little bit burning. My name is Jörn from the Greater Copenhagen area, representing 2 regions and 46 municipalities. So kind of know to multiple levels of the issues with climate adaptation. I have a question for the panelists, but mainly Teresa and Maria. And from your context, because I think that some of the capacity building that needs to happen is also to decision makers. Because climate adaptation forces our societies and municipalities and regions to think about different decisions, also hard decisions. Denmark is a very low-lying country, so there's no politician there that is willing to make the hard decision. Okay, where do we build the dike? Who's included? Who's outside? Who gets flooded? Who has to move? And that's like a tin can kick between the local, regional, and national levels. What are your experiences with this kind of difficult decisions and building capacities among decision makers?
Excellent question.
It really is an excellent question, and the whole structure of our work is new, so I haven't been in touch with decision makers yet. So let's see, but that's something that would be very nice to explore with you, maybe in the coffee break. That what kind of examples you have there. It's quite often, I believe, it's about financial resources, for example, and that's where all assistance and project funding comes in hand, I guess.
Okay, thank you for the question. It is really a hard one, but from my experience, our political representatives, it's a huge topic for them. So they are trying to find the ways how to do more, how to support the adaptation to climate change. So that's a good good part, but we are having a local election next year, so we will see what happens next. But hopefully everybody who comes after them, after the new political representation is set up, I hope they will also see the importance of the topic. We had tornado 2 years ago in our region. It hit 3 municipalities. The damage was catastrophic, and there were also casualties. So it also, really, it shows the importance of the topic and that there needs to be done more about adapting to climate change. So that's my answer.
Did you want to add anything, Fernando? Yeah, just agree. Okay, there's just an agreement there. My last question. What impact, in your opinion, and we've touched upon this a little bit already, but what impact, in your opinion, has the adaptation mission had on your regional adaptation work? And I guess the really tricky part, and it also open ears from the Pathways to Resilience colleagues, is do you see any future benefits that the mission can bring, and what might they be?
Yeah, we expect the examples of good practice from EU regions that have similar climatic conditions, but sadly the South Moravian region is not one of the signers of the adaptation mission, but there is no doubt that the mission would be very beneficial to us. So.
And maybe a point to remind that the funding that has been presented this morning from Pathways to Resilience is open to all regions in the very complicated criteria that you saw, but is open to all regions, so not just those that have signed the charter.
Good to know, good to know. I will remember it.
Great.
Thanks. I think among the signatories, I've seen that I believe that adaptation work has advanced or elevated, and it probably has more emphasis in their work than without the mission. Although there are also Finnish regions and the cities actively developing their adaptation planning, and although they are not signatories, especially bigger cities have been working on adaptation for a long time now. But clearly, one of the very much welcomed benefits of the mission has been the possibility to search for project consortia for research and development of adaptation activities. As I said earlier, that's because adaptation is not always budgeted, so external funding can be pivotal to do adaptation work. But it remains to be seen how the mission will benefit those who are not signatories. Now, it's very good to hear that this call will be open to other regions as well, and this is also where in Finland our work comes into picture, because we are trying to bridge those gaps and provide these regions who are not signatories of the mission assistance in their adaptation work, and there are a lot of similarities in our work, and I feel that there is no need to reinvent the wheel, because we have the wheel, the rest regional adaptation support tool. So we are definitely using that in our work.
Excellent. And Fernando?
Yes, after listening to the previous presentation, I immediately think of an opportunity for this call with networking across many countries about fire. So it's a very specific opportunity.
Well, I hope that there's been a number of different triggers that have gone off in your mind. So it's not just we have one project, but hopefully there's a number of projects that will be able to come out of this session. If I try to summarize a little bit, and it's very difficult to do so, because I think there's a lot of good examples that you've been able to give here, but it seems that if I had to judge the mission, and we're in the very early stages of the missions were there, they were designed to pool resources, to do these moonshots. Fernando mentioned it in his presentation. And it sounds from colleagues on the stage here that some of these things are already being achieved. 1 or 2 years into the mission cycle, we have this new focus that has brought together a national level in Finland, bringing the regions to work together in very early stages, but it sounds very encouraging. We have everybody talking about this ecosystem approach, bringing in the different stakeholders. I hope we also include the citizens in this approach as well, because this is a big part of what we're doing in the mission. The pooling of resources, so we don't just have one Horizon project, we have a Horizon project, we have a cascade funding, we have things that we're doing on the local level, and we're bringing all of that together to work towards this ambitious mission approach. We have different types of regions that are getting involved. We have a region, did you say you're 50 per square kilometre, the average population? 10, so 10 per square kilometre. But you also have regions that are applying to the mission that are far more populous than that. So we're really applying this to all regions in Europe. And there's a lot of opportunities for regions that are not necessarily signed up to the Charter, but can still get involved in something like Pathways to Resilience. There is an expectation that we start to share some of these good practices. So we're in the early stages, but this is something that the Pathways to Resilience project and other projects under the adaptation mission will be looking to do. So please stay in touch, add and follow us on social media, but there will be a lot of more activities that are taking place in this 5-year project where you can start to engage. And it's not just, as Fernando said, about funding, it's really about learning and sharing from each other. And I think that's the point that we will sum up this session. And if you could give a big round of applause to my colleagues